Hi Cancer, welcome to your May 2021 Astro Update. It's Raina here. Whoa, what is happening in May? May is a month where there's a lot of energy in your 12th house. And this is one of those things where it's hard to kind of hype it because the 12th house is very contemplative, private. It's not what we associate with when we're talking about having this, boisterous time out in the world and doing things. And so for some people, they may be, what's good is it? But one of the things that is really important to realize is that the North Node has been transiting through your 12th house all year. So there's something very fated, very important about that 12th house for Cancers. And this is why the eclipses are tied into, why they have been in Cancer. And of course, Sag, the other area, the opposite house of the 6th house. Very practical place, the 6th house. The South Node has been transiting through there and in Sagittarius. And so the universe wants you to focus on the spiritual. That doesn't mean neglecting the physical, neglecting your health, which is also the 6th house, but not giving it undue importance over your spiritual life. And let's face it, most people do seem to focus more on 6th house matters. Their physical health, their work, which is a 6th house, and, pets are 6th house. Maybe they're pets too. And like I said, it's not about neglecting those areas, but sometimes people are overly focused on the physical to the exclusion of this other part of our lives, which, as far as I can see, is why we are here. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. And so therefore there has to be some attention given to matters of the spirit, and that includes meditation. And, people know how to meditate or they have heard about it, but also the 12th house is about seclusion, And this, you always have planets going through your 12th house, personal planets, right before your solar return. So you're going to start to see birthdays in Cancer in late June, and the personal planets are, somewhere in that vicinity, whether it's ahead of the sun or, just after the sun. And so that's why even in May you have some of these planets coming into the forefront. In Gemini, the sign right before you. So that's your 12th house. And so it makes sense that you should look at this area even more than some of the other signs with and give it great importance. So on the 3rd of the month, Mercury goes into Gemini, into that 12th house, and this can make you more intuitive. Cancer, being a water sign, is already gifted in this area in whatever way it shows up for you, but this enhances it because Mercury is your mind. And even though we can look at the mind as something that is kind of like connected to the mundane world, we can also talk about consciousness. And, I don't want to get too far into that, but this idea that it's not just about how we think in terms of how we, express and retain information or absorb information. It's also the quality of our thoughts. Do we have an elevated consciousness? Do we think thoughts at a higher level, or do we have more The 12th house is a water house, so, those emotions this is the area of like unconscious emotions because it's connected to past lives. So Mercury here can give you that kind of those psychic hits that are very hard to kind of pin down, where you have these cellular memories, or it's something like past life memories. But it can be unnerving because you're not this is not a rational mind. This is a very intuitive mind, but it's not rational. On the 8th, Venus goes into that house as well in Gemini, and this can have some connection with karmic love. This can also be for people who are engaged in some sort of romantic, dalliance, or whatever you want to call it, that is of a clandestine nature. So seeing somebody and it's on the down low for whatever reason, you don't want to announce to everybody that you are dating somebody or that you are seeing them. Yeah, I guess it's the same thing. Well, I don't know. Seeing, I put that in air quotes. So it's just kind of like this is a hidden area. So when you have love here, there may be some kind of a secret love, but it also could be on the spiritual side. Somebody that you meet that is like a soulmate, but you know what? Really, when you think about it, who cares about soulmates? Although that seems really cool. Wouldn't it be cool to have a mate that we call a soulmate because you're on the same page spiritually? That's how I see it, that you think in similar ways about the spiritual path, and therefore you can support each other. So Mars is in your sign all month. And, I was thinking about this and how this plays out for Cancer people, because you're a cardinal sign. And it's really funny because Cancers sometimes can appear to me to be very aggressive without even having this transit. And I think, but it's like with the emotions, with the relationships, that Cancer really, that's where you tend to be very assertive or aggressive, is when you're trying to establish a relationship or maintain it. And that can lead to sometimes you might be quite reticent, but in those situations, you might actually be able to. But because you're a water sign, this gets a little tricky because Mars is very aggressive. And Mars is actually one of the things that Mars is connected to is our anger management or lack thereof. So when Mars is in a person's sign, it can make them very energetic. They can feel like, even because this is like having it in your first house. If you're listening for your sun sign, your rising sign, it isn't, your natal first house. And that's the body. So it can be somebody who wants to move their body more, and that can be great for the physical. But even just in general, the person may be a lot more aggressive. And this, because it's in a water sign and it's in your sign, you could be more demanding about, the people in your life, your loved ones. And you definitely have to watch that, because you may be coming from this place of, a sense of urgency, but it's not necessarily what is happening. There's a lot of, what's the word? Rashness, if that's such a word, with Mars. Mars is very impatient, let's put it that way. And so it wants what it wants right in this moment. And that can lead to, kind of butting heads with people while you're trying to get your emotional needs met. On the 11th, we have a new moon at 21 degrees of Taurus, and Taurus is a friendly angle to you. It's a sextile. And this is coming from your 11th house. And so this is the house of the, your hopes and wishes. There is an astrologer who passed away who I think said something about making 40 wishes when you have a new moon in the 11th house, which is kind of cool. It's a lot of wishes, though. But it's supposed to be the traditional astrologers consider it the luckiest house. So I suppose, in terms of setting intentions, at the very least, since it is this place of long range goals, be intentional about it. Whether or not you really believe in the I don't want to say magic, the energy, the possibilities of new moons actually producing what you want. This is, I think this is really important now that I think about it, because we're going to have a lunar eclipse in November in Taurus, and this is going to be the first one in Taurus. And it's going to be at 27 degrees of Taurus, so not the exact same degree, but in the same range. And you could reap an amazing harvest 6 months from now. Is that 6 months from now? I'm sure it is. If you really are intentional about it, or at least you could try as an experiment and see if it pans out. And obviously, when we're talking about long range goals, maybe that is too soon to see those, but some kind of, see about anything that is not immediate. Yeah, I guess 6 months can be long range in certain ways. This can also be new people coming into your life in terms of like social contacts or friends and things like that. On the 13th, Jupiter goes into Pisces. This is really amazing because I hope I don't embarrass myself, but I'm going to be celebrating 6 years of doing this in the month of May. And I don't recall ever seeing Jupiter go into another sign halfway through the year. And maybe I haven't been paying attention, but the cycle of Jupiter is that it goes through one sign for a year. That's the transit of it. So it's not a personal planet. It's not something that, kind of cycles very quickly within a few weeks or 6 weeks or something like that, like Venus and Mars. But on the other hand, it's not like, Pluto, 15 years or something like that, or even Saturn. So I just, have been remembering it staying in that sign the whole time, even when it retrogrades. But in this case, it is going really fast through Aquarius. And by mid-May, it goes into Pisces. Now, the significance of this for you is that it's a fellow water sign. So that forms a trine. So this is really fortunate for Cancerians because Jupiter is this benefic planet. It has a lot of, positive attributes and influences. And then on top of that, it's forming an angle that is considered the most fortunate, the easiest to experience manifestation. So that is really awesome. And it's coming from the 9th house. So this is the house that Jupiter rules. Now, I do have to say that Jupiter is only going to be in Pisces for a few months. It's actually going to go retrograde right at the summer solstice, or winter if you're down under, and that's when the sun goes into your sign. So as soon as the sun goes into your sign, Jupiter goes retrograde, but it will stay in Pisces even a little bit after that and then go back into Aquarius. So basically what we're talking about here is the progression from the 8th to the 9th houses. Both of those houses are connected to the spiritual, to God and spirits. Okay, the 8th house is the occult, the witchy, magical area, and alchemy is associated with the eighth house, transformation. The ninth house is more of that's Scorpio, ninth house is Sag. So ninth house is more of the organized religions, the systems of philosophical thought. And that can include things that are not religions, but like various philosophers. But how we, our life philosophy, our personal philosophies. Also, higher education is the ninth house. Long distance travel, anything that expands you. And Jupiter rules that house, so there is that angle of Jupiter being in its own house, and Jupiter is associated with luck, so there's luck there too. So you have the 12th house being occupied by the North Node. You've got these 8th and 9th houses also with Jupiter, and that these are kind of longer, they're lingering in these houses for longer periods of time. So that is really also in play for you this year. And so, Cancer, are you studying anything that has a spiritual nature? Are you taking any courses? Or, I'm self-taught. Sometimes we just get into something because we really love it and we dive, head first into it, right? So I'm not saying you have to go and sign up for anything, but are you reading anything that has an esoteric nature when we're talking about the 8th house, and as Jupiter goes into that 9th house, just about spiritual matters in general? I would say even like positive thinking with the 9th house. Sag is associated with that, with being, Jupiter is the wheel of fortune in the tarot. For some of you, this may mean that you're going to be traveling more. I would say especially maybe over the summer. I'm sorry, you Aussies and New Zealanders. I don't mean to. I just like to say summer. If you understood my winter, you would understand why summer is such a sweet word. But you might be traveling over the summer months and when Jupiter is in Pisces. But actually, when Jupiter goes retrograde, one of the things that can happen is that you can take advantage of opportunities that eluded you back a while ago. So this is happening in the 9th house, and it'll still be retrograding in the 8th house, but in the 9th house, this could involve travel. So maybe some of you had canceled a cruise or canceled something that was, because of the shutdown, and now you can go and do it. But I think that in 2022, this is going to be even more highlighted because there's going to be more, Jupiter will be in there for good, for that year. So there will be more of a long range influence. On the 20th, and one more thing about Jupiter in the 9th house. If you've been trying to get into any kind of college or things like that, you may have more luck with that. On the 20th, Jupiter, oh, can you tell it's the morning? On the 20th, the sun goes into Gemini, so we're talking about this 12th house. So that might make you a little bit more contemplative, hermit-like, wanting to do your own thing in a very quiet sort of way. Maybe not being very social for a little bit. This is your gestation period before your solar return, the month before. On the 23rd, Saturn goes retrograde at 13 degrees of Aquarius. So, we're talking about that 8th house. And this is a very interesting thing, because I'm just going to cut to the end of this to kind of mention something. There's going to be a Mercury retrograde in your 12th house on the 29th of the month, and at 24 degrees of Gemini. And these two transits, I mean, some of you may do some kind of past life regression in order to figure something out, to pinpoint your karma, your karmic experience. If you've had some kind of pattern in your life that on the conscious level you just can't seem to figure out how to transcend, this may be something that you're drawn to. And, actually, when Saturn is in your 8th house, I'm talking about when it's just direct, you might have gone into therapy, some of you. And obviously, I just want to say, when I talk about these transits, I realize that not everybody is doing this, even if you're born under the sign of Cancer. But still, I mean, for those who have been, you may have been going through therapy and still have these lingering questions and are looking to past life regression or something along those lines. But also, this is just self-inquiry, where you can, in both of these houses, which are both karmic houses anyway, but also are water houses, and deal with the emotions. And I would say, especially with the 8th and the 12th houses, they're talking about either repressed emotions and experiences, or downright with the 12th house, more like totally unconscious, where that's coming from past lives. At least with the other water houses, you might have some conscious awareness of things that happen, especially if they happen in this lifetime, and how they impacted you. So really asking yourself, do you tend to, have this need for power, and where is that coming from? Because when Saturn is in this house, I mean, it's really talking about trying to make it so that you're the best functioning person you can be in the area of where Saturn is transiting in the 8th house. This is all about the psychological motivations. And, so people born with Saturn in the 8th house tend to be micromanagers and things like that. So really thinking about those while there's a transit here and Saturn is retrograde. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if for some people it lightened up your mood, if you will, because Saturn can be associated with depression. And when it's retrograde, it can, for those people who are sensitive, they may feel better, ironically. On the 26th, there is a lunar eclipse at 5 degrees of Sag. And so this is, for Cancer people, this may fall in your 6th house, although it's a very early degree of Sag. So probably just those early Cancers will experience it in that work sector. For the rest of you, this is going to be actually in your love sector. So for those people where it's in your love area, this might be some enveloping type of emotional response to somebody that you meet. I mean, it could be, to me, it could even be like this love at first sight, but just not, beyond love, just like this cosmic realization. And remember that Venus is going to be in that 12th house at the same time. So when I was talking about karmic love, that could be the same thing. Where you just see somebody and you realize this is the one. People have seen someone and said, I'm going to marry that person. And they have, and then they stay, married for life. It's not something that never happens. And it's cool that it happens too, right? It's really awesome that people have those experiences. For other people, maybe if you've been suffering with still loving somebody, that that it's either not a healthy relationship that you're in. This is not the this is the just love itself. So it could be speaking about any type of relationship, but maybe you need to let go of your feelings for someone, and this may help you. This may give you that grace to be able to do so. And then on the 29th, we have that Mercury retrograde, and I've spoken about that already. So anyway, I hope that this resonated with you, Cancer. If you would like a private reading, I've been promoting my double readings, which are more in depth when it comes to exploring your chart and exploring the transits in a more exact way. If you're listening for your sun sign, your rising sign is the determiner of your natal chart, which has to do with your time of birth. So that your rising sign can be anything, and so all of these transits might be totally different if you're looking at your natal chart. So please click on the link below if you're interested. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.